Hello, everyone, and welcome to Leading the Way in RVA. My name is Casey Long, and I'm the host of this podcast, as well as the owner of Fulfilled Coaching and Consulting. The purpose of this podcast is twofold. First and foremost, to introduce you to inspiring leaders here in the Richmond area. Second is to explore different leadership topics and come up with tactical tips that you can put into practice to support you in developing yourself further as a leader. We'll do this through the first half of our session talking with our guest, and second half of the session, the guest has brought a leadership topic that we will explore. And then as always, we'll end our time with our guest nominating future potential guests for the podcast. So without further ado, I'd love to take a moment and introduce you to Katharine Wintsch. Katharine is the founder and CEO of the Mom Complex, as well as the author of Slay Like a Mother. I have had a secret crush on Katharine for a long time. Living here in Richmond, I know her husband, and I've followed some of the things that she's done, and I've always wanted the opportunity to sit down and meet with you. So very special moment for Casey today. So welcome, Katharine.
Thank you.
So glad to have you here.
I hope the crush continues after this interview.
I'm sure it will. Oh my gosh. Well, we're so glad to have you here. There's so many amazing things we can talk about that I've been following that you've done, but would love to just hear a little bit about your journey, what's brought you to where you are today. Would love to start off. I'm curious, are you even from Richmond? How did you end up here?
Yes, I was born and raised in Richmond. I love it here. My entire family is here, aunts, uncles, parents, brother, nieces, nephews. And my husband is actually from Switzerland. And one of my most persuasive moments in my life was convincing him to move to Richmond.
Wow, Switzerland or Richmond?
But he loves it, and he's more well-known than I am. Everybody knows him and loves him, and he loves it here too. So born and raised in Richmond, went to JMU for undergrad, BCU for my master's degree, and then spent 15 years at the Martin Agency.
Oh, yes.
Marketing and advertising, and, phenomenal experience. But I think that advertising is a young person's game. And it's an always on, never stop, always growing, always running, always chasing, money and accounts and business, and obviously in the service business. And so after I had 2 kids, I wanted something smaller and I could put my arms around, and I wanted more balance and wanted to feel more whole and have more energy. So I spun out on my own in 2014 and started my consulting company, the Mom Complex, where we work with Fortune 500 companies like Walmart, Johnson & Johnson, Chobani, and we help them develop better products and services for mothers.
Nice.
And I'm sure we'll get into that transition, but it's one of the things that I'm most proud of was walking away from a very successful career that I was admired for and respected for, but it was too much for me, and it was so overwhelming, and now my life is not overwhelming.
Wow. So Martin Agency, very well respected. I recently heard even like Richmond has become kind of like a marketing mecca in a way. So curious, like your time at Martin Agency and like being a big marketing name in this space. Like, what are some of the things that you learned during your time at Martin Agency that still stick with you today?
Well, it's an extraordinary company that has a phenomenal culture. And so, in my time at the Martin Agency, it was run by John Adams and Mike Hughes. Yes. I mean, legends.
Legends.
In the advertising industry. And not only legends, but they are and were extraordinary human beings and leaders. And all of us who were there really felt loved and respected for who we were as human beings, not just as employees or machines turning out a product. And so it was, the advertising industry in general is very cutthroat, and it tends to be filled with a lot of jerks, to be honest, with a lot of ego. And that just wasn't tolerated as much at the Martin Agency, as from what I heard from my friends in other cities and markets. And the Martin Agency was the only game in town for a really, really long time. And it was such a pioneer. And now you have Arts and Letters and other like really well acclaimed and respected agencies, Dotted Line, that are growing their businesses here. And of course, you have the VCU Brand Center, which is pumping out lots of creative and strategic talent. So it's interesting to see, Richmond on the map for that. But for my time at Martin, the interesting thing about advertising is there's no hierarchy. I was very young when I started and was able to excel very quickly because it's a type of industry where if you're smart and you're driven and you have good ideas, they will let you in the meeting. They will let you speak. It's not this sense of I have to prove myself. I got to go 3 deep on the, the hierarchy and the food chain. Like that just doesn't exist. And so I remember my own father, I think I was like 27 and I was going to meet with the chief marketing officer of Hanes with the Martin Agency. And my dad said, "Why are they letting you go to that meeting?" And I said, "I don't know, but they are." And so that was an extraordinary gift to, just have a path paved for me that I was able to have very senior experiences at a very young age. Mm-hmm. And, when you're invited into those rooms, you show up and perform, you're not going to show up and make a fool of yourself. So it really helped me up my game. And, I still love and respect the people there, but the industry itself was not good for my soul, over time because it's if we made $15 million 1 year, it was 17 the next, and then it was 19, and it was far more than that. But you get the point. Like it's that type of industry. You never really have the opportunity to take a breath and be proud of yourself because as soon as December 31st comes and you hit the revenue goal and you're like, good job. Okay, we did it. And then it's like, okay, next year it's more. And then next year it's more. And so that got old. For me. And I'm a people pleaser and I am a recovering perfectionist. And so that always on, always performing environment served me very well for 15 years. But after that, I just needed a different life.
Yeah. And what were some of the things that started coming up that made you realize like, all right, because I know burnout is a big thing right now. That burnout is what made me leap too. Mm-hmm. But what were some of the things that made you be like, yeah, it's time?
Some of the clues were when people would ask me, what do you do for fun? And I was like, what are you talking about? Oh. Like, all I do is work. I was working 80 hours a week. And again, it served me well at the time. I'm not complaining about, the hours I worked, but I wasn't reading books. I wasn't spending time with my friends. I wasn't a great wife. I wasn't, the best daughter or sister. And so that was one clue. I never had an answer to that, and I always was just like, I just work. What do you mean for fun? Fun doesn't get you ahead, And so that was like a clue. And then, it started to dawn on me that it was never enough. So at 30 years old, I was, on a very small team that pitched and won the Walmart business.
I remember that.
It was crazy. And again, they let me in the room. They let me go to the final. They let me front, this pitch for my department, which was bonkers. But, we won. It was $42 million. And I was, promoted from a vice president to a senior vice president. And I started to notice that I was only proud of myself for like 8 days.
Wow.
And then it was like, what's next? So as soon as I got the senior vice president title, it's like, what's it take to be an EVP? And I had my sights set on that. And I started to learn that you can appreciate what you have. You can't be grateful for your success if you are always chasing more. And that's what I was doing. So that started to click with me of like, when will it be enough? And I usually use the metaphor of like climbing with a pickaxe. I think that's how I treated the first 15 years of my career, is just climbing and climbing and climbing and out of breath and out of oxygen.
Yeah, because then you got to pick it.
Yeah. And so I got to the top of a pretty tall mountain, that I'm very, very proud of. But when I got to the top, I didn't like the view. And I was...
You liked it for like 8 days.
Yeah, I liked it for 8 days. And then I was like, this is what I'm doing this for? Just to earn, more money for the company, or just to be proud of myself for 8 days? And so that I was like, at the top of this mountain, and I was like, I can't believe this is it. I thought the view was going to be better, because our society is like, if you work hard, if you make good money, if you get promoted, you will be happy. That's the message. And I was like, I don't like this view. It's not right for me. And so I put on my big girl pants and got off the mountain.
Right. Like, so I know this feeling of putting on your big girl pants. So like, what was that like for you? Like, there are so many people out there who are burned out. They know they're not in the right role, and they keep pickaxing, slugging along. Like, what did it look like for you to put on your big girl pants? Like, what are some of the things that you had to do?
For me, putting on my big girl pants meant realizing that I was no longer a child. And my whole life was trying to please other people. And I developed my self-worth from external circumstances. I needed to be loved by the outside world because I didn't love myself. And I was always trying to please the grown-ups. And even I saw myself with John Adams and Mike Hughes, I saw myself treating them like my parents, meaning, look at me, look what I did. I won this pitch, and I was so desperate for them to be proud of me so that I could be proud of me.
You did some deep self-work.
Oh, yeah. I love therapy. Cannot say enough about therapy. Yeah. I have been in therapy since I was 15 years old, and I'm 48. So,
yes.
Yeah, it meant like realizing that I'm a grown-up. I'm an adult, and I don't have to live my life in service or pleasing or making other people proud. I need to make myself proud. And that was the big girl pants, was, finally realizing that I'm a grown-ass woman and I don't have to chase approval and acceptance from other people.
Wow. I love that. What's popping for me as you're saying that is Robert Keegan. He, I believe, is a professor at Harvard. He developed the 5 stages of human development. And, I might get this wrong, but I think the 3rd stage is social stage. And that's where we're like, I think of my middle schoolers, like all they care about is what other people think of them and what society says success is and all that. And then the next stage is self-authored. And so breaking free from what others expect from you and developing and crafting who you want to be and just living into that. It sounds like that's what you did.
Well, I love the term self-authored because I do think, especially as women, I think we take in all the cultural cues. We're supposed to be petite and quiet and nice and kind and pretty and perfect and all the things, and we just absorb that and we become that, we become what we think will, win approval and affection, from other people. But I have seen, so many women, we reach a certain age and it's like we have to self-author, the path forward, and we have to stop following other people's rules. But at some point, I think you have to realize that the rules don't work for you, and then and through so much therapy, it was like, what is my definition of success? What makes me happy? What kind of life do I want to live? Not just what kind of job do I want to have? And I definitely self-authored this, portion of my life.
Yes, I love that. So you use therapy, which I'm a coach, so I always like to explain like the difference there. So therapy and coaching both super powerful and they cross over in a lot of ways. But therapy tends to be like, I've got some things from my past that I really need to wrestle and I really need to tame in order to feel whole, so then I can work towards my future. And it sounds like you had some perfectionism and some people pleasing that needed to be broken down. And if it's totally hindering you to move forward, therapy is the right solution. And then a coach can help you think about the future and where you want to go and who you want to be and help you take steps to get there. And oftentimes as a coach, if I'm working with someone and they're just not making progress, it's typically a referral to therapy.
Yep.
Because there's a block.
Yeah. Amen. I mean, sign up for all the help you can get. I mean, there are like, I don't think this life should be managed, all on our own. I think we need the help of professionals, and people like you can reflect back. We just get lost in the sauce of our own lives and what we're doing. And when you work with a coach or a therapist, they can play back like what you're saying, how you're feeling. And there's so many aha moments. I think it's very lonely to go through life without those resources.
Support. Yeah. And then the other thing I'm hearing about what you shared that I love is you kind of took like your own struggles of being a working mom and how that was not working for you with that high pressure position. And then you kind of took all of that into your own company and turned it into this business that supports women and supports businesses meet their bottom line. So I think it's cool how you took something you were struggling with and made a business out of it.
Yeah. But I mean, it goes back to your point of like self-authorship. It was, I can build a career that makes me happy and that I still do a great job, but doesn't suck the life out of me, at the same time. And I think, you have to ask yourself, like, yes, we want to be successful, but at what cost, and what are we willing to pay to be successful? And I paid in total and utter bone tired fatigue, and like I said, just wasn't my best self, for myself or for other people. And, but, I'm living proof that you can change. And so are you, you have something bigger.
Very similar stories.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you don't have to work 60 hours a week to be successful. No. I love it. Oh, well, I'm super curious to hear what leadership topic you brought for us to talk about today.
So I wanted to talk about how, as an entrepreneur, I have somewhat of a counterculture approach to leadership and running my company, and that growth is not my goal. Like, growth of the company is not the goal. So what I saw in the advertising industry was it was growth at all costs, to your sanity. And again, some people love that industry, and that's great. But after 15 years, it just wasn't for me. But, that's the mentality, especially with entrepreneurialism. It's the script is you're going to work and grow. And one day you're going to sell this company, make a lot of money, and like move to an island.
Because that's what society says.
Yes, and that's what everybody, not everybody does, but that's kind of what people say you should do. And I rejected that from the get-go because of my previous career. I was like, I want to be an entrepreneur because I want to be in control of my own life, but I don't have to grow, and I certainly don't have to grow at all costs. So as an example, I spun out on my own in 2014. Mm-hmm. It's 2025, and our revenue goal for my company has been the same every single year. It never goes up.
This is so inspiring.
Ugh. I just want people to know, like, you don't have to follow these rules and kill yourself. And so, and I had so many business advisors. The first year we set our goal and we met our goal. My business advisors would say, that's awesome. What's the goal next year? And I would say, it's the same. And they were like, what do you mean it's the same? But you made this much money so you can make more next year. And I said, we set the goal knowing what we could do while still having balance, while still having a life, while still being a whole human being. And we're going to continue that. And if we raise the goal, then we have to raise our effort and our time. And we also have to hire more people. And that's not the goal, So we have anywhere between 7 to 10, full-time employees. And it's beautiful to not have to grow or not want to grow.
That is beautiful. And I love that. Growth is a value of mine. So I'm always like growth, learning, development. And I'm my second year in my own business. And of course, like I had a great first year and I had tons of balance. My goal for myself was I wanted to work 25 hours a week and earn what I had earned in corporate. And I did that. And then natural human tendency, end of the year comes. And I was like, oh, that was great. But I redefined some of my vision and my purpose to be beyond like income. But then I still stretched myself on my income like goals. Yeah. Because that's what society says. I know. And you don't have to do that.
And somehow you're a failure if you don't. I mean, here it is. It's like you strike out on your own, you start your business, you do all this. And again, it's not enough if you're not growing. And so while financial growth is not our goal at all, I still want to grow as a human being. I still want my team to grow. So I think there can be extraordinary personal growth, but it does not have to be in tandem or done simultaneously with financial growth. Mm-hmm. And I never even knew this was an option, and I went to a conference probably almost 20 years ago, and I don't even know who this woman was. I hate that I don't know who she is, but it was a woman presenting on stage. She was an entrepreneur, and she said, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a CEO, and growth is not my goal. And I was like, what? Like, that's an option? Like, you cannot grow, and from that moment, I was like, I'm going to do that. That's what I'm going to do.
You self-authored your definition of success and goals. So curious, like for your organization, what are some of the things that you define as success?
Well, I love Ariana Huffington's work, and she many, many years ago came out with the third metric, which was one of her books. And she talked about as human beings, we need a third metric of success outside of title and money. Mm-hmm. So that's what society says, bigger title, more money, you win. But she says everybody needs a third metric that you're gauging your success against. So I saw that, read the book, and I was like, okay. And so we determined it as a company that impact is our third metric. Mm-hmm. And so that is really beautiful because it's the impact on our clients' business, but it's the impact on our lives. It's the impact on our clients personally. It's the impact of my writing and the books that I write and talk about. And so it's just the impact. If we're helping to make the world better and people better while living beautiful lives of our own, then that is more than enough. For me,
the third metric. I love that. And what it is, it's the value of yours. And I have I have a shared value. So my values are faith, love, impact, growth, adventure, courage. And so the growth one, I think you can so easily, like you said, tie it to the natural metrics that everybody would expect, or not natural, let's say the societal metrics that everybody would expect. And then it sounds like you've tied it to a value, which is impact.
Yeah. Yeah. And, one of the things I realized, everybody talks about balance, which is, it's overused. We don't even know what it means anymore. But I think the traditional definition is, work versus home life. That's what you're trying to balance. But I never really resonated with that for a lot of reasons. First of all, I'm juggling 200 things, not two. We all are, so it's like the two felt like it kind of weird. And I also always felt like, I don't know why my job has to hate my family and my family has to hate my job. Like, why are they such in opposition? If you really love your job, I didn't mind always like working in that sense because it was such a part of me. So for me, I, self-authored a new definition, which is for me, what I'm trying to balance is effort versus effect. So how much effort am I putting into my job? How much time? And then what is the effect that I'm having on the world or my clients, the impact that I'm having? And if I look at my career in advertising, the effort that I put in was extraordinary. And the impact that I had or the effect I had was very, very, very small. So for me as a strategic planner, the best I could hope for was that I had a very small role in a 30-second television commercial for Walmart that would be on the air for 3 weeks and then put in the trash can. And thrown away.
It's not much
like disposable. And I was like, that doesn't feel good to me because I'm sacrificing my life to do this. And so now I don't work very hard and I have extraordinary impact on a lot of things. And it's just a much better balance for me.
I love that. How are you measuring your impact? Like, what are some of the ways you know that you're having this extraordinary impact?
Well, I would say for the mom complex, the impact is seen when our clients launch new products that moms really want and need. So we helped Walmart in the UK redesign some of their shopping carts to be lower and wider so moms could put an infant car seat on top and actually see where they're going in the grocery store instead of, being completely blocked, your line of sight being blocked. So when things like that happen, or Chobani comes out with a new yogurt that we help them design and concept and come up with mothers themselves, that is extraordinary, impact. But
so like right before this, I stopped at the grocery store and I was mind blown. I get out of my car and the car next to me has a car seat. And the dad turns the car seat. The car seat has a turning feature to just grab the child. I was like, what? So it's things like these. Things like these that you're helping 100%. Impact. Like if
100%.
You were making enormous impact in any way that you're helping parents or mothers make life easier. Like, remember how difficult it was to pick your kid?
That is I'm really jealous that exists now. So, but I think of the impact on the corporate side for me is we're helping moms, alleviate their kind of functional or physical, pain points, the car seats, the shopping, the taste of the yogurt, whatever. But then with my work as an author and writing Slay Like a Mother was to help women and mothers with their personal pain points and that's kind of the inside of you. So I love that I have this ability to make your life easier with shopping carts and, different products, but also I wanted to work on the inside of women.
I would say might be more important.
Yes, I agree. If I had to pick one, it'd be the latter. And help women alleviate their self-doubt is...
Because society has put so much pressure on us. I love that. What would be one or two, go buy the book and read it and get some good tips and things. What would be, if you had one tip for women or men who are dealing with self-doubt? What would be something?
Yeah, as it relates back to leadership too, I think that for women in particular, of not buying into the imposter syndrome storyline. So what I like to say about that is imposter syndrome is a systemic problem that society has us convinced is a personal problem, meaning you're not confident enough. We need to send you to confidence classes. You need to, recite these mantras in the mirror. And we're trying to teach women, to be more confident, and we're trying to fix women instead of fixing the places that women work. And I like to tell a lot of people that, do you feel like an imposter when you get promoted? Most women are like, yes, absolutely. And then I say, if all the people at your new level were women, would you feel like an imposter? And they go, no. And so we feel like an imposter because it's unfamiliar to us. Men can feel like imposters too, of course. It's not just for women. But we feel like imposters when something is unfamiliar to us. It's not because we're incompetent. It's new and it should be uncomfortable and it should feel that way. But we also need to have workplaces that support women more and don't allow us to feel like imposters because we're so supported and, promoted and paid equally and all
Yeah, so it's a systemic issue that you're kind of tackling from all different angles. Yeah. You're slaying.
Yes. Yes.
I love that. Yeah, I deal with a lot of clients, and we all have a form of imposter syndrome. And my advice here, and I've said this before, but is to name it and tame it. So I do some pretty wild visualization stuff with clients where first notice where it shows up in your body. You feel it in your body, and then associate a color with it, objectify it. Sometimes I have people turn it into characters, kind of inside out. They have these little characters that are their imposter syndrome, and we name them, and then we listen to what they have to say and what they need from us, and then we manage them. So yeah, I love that. Well, you have been just a wealth of knowledge and inspiration. Just to sum up a couple things that I know I'm taking away from this, is really that high achiever, balancing your values or you'll burn out, right? You are so driven, so hardworking, it burns you out. You recognize that. You took what had led to that and what was important to you and turned it into something. That I think my biggest takeaway is you've managed to maintain the same revenue and not fall into the societal expectation that you have to keep growing. I love that. That's my biggest takeaway. And then on top of all of that, this impact piece and how you're doing that through your business, how you're doing that through your book. And I'm just so glad we got to meet. I'm so incredibly inspired by you.
Do you still have a crush on me?
I absolutely still have a crush on you. An even bigger one.
Success. That's my definition of success. Yes.
I love it. Well, as always, would love to just take a couple minutes to talk about who are leaders here in the Richmond area that inspire you, that might be a great future guest for the podcast.
So the first person that I would love for you to speak with is Honesty Liller.
Ooh, Honesty Liller. I love the name.
She is a phenomenal leader here in Richmond. She is the CEO of the McShin Foundation, which is helping men and women in active recovery. And the thing I love so much about honesty is how honest she is.
She lives up to her name.
It works. And so she was addicted to heroin for 8 years and other hard drugs for 16 years. And she is completely sober now, has been for 15 years. And she actually went through the program at McShin and not only cleared the program, not only, maintained her sobriety, but now she's the CEO of the entire organization. And she wrote a phenomenal book called Scattered Pink about her recovery. And so I think she's a leader that just leads with so much compassion and so much heart. And the work of helping people in recovery is so exhausting and so overwhelming. And I just love watching her lead, and I love learning from her.
It sounds like the ultimate version of someone that took their pain and turned it into somebody else's playbook and does that through the McShin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
She's special. She's special. And the second woman is Ann Moss Rogers. And she was also at the Martin Agency back in the day, also an author. She wrote an amazing book called The Diary of a Broken Mind. And it is the story of her son's battle with substance use disorder. And unfortunately, he lost his life to suicide. But she, too, has turned her pain into a really powerful playbook. And she is leading groups and organizations and discussions and conferences all over the country out of her home, here in Richmond, that are really helping destigmatize suicide and really start talking about it and having those honest conversations. So I think both Honesty and Moss, I love that they're turning their pain into power and they're helping other people, but they're also extraordinary leaders. And they're not in the traditional, corporate space, but I don't think that's the definition of a leader. It's not limited, to that.
So. Yeah, they're making significant change in our communities. So I look forward to connecting with them.
Yay.
Oh, well, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Right, thanks. Hey, listener, if you enjoyed today's session, take a moment and subscribe, or comment below. Especially leave a comment of a leader that inspires you here in Richmond that might be a great future guest. Also, if you're finding this session compelling and eager to learn more about yourself and your own leadership, don't hesitate to click into my website listed in the description and schedule a complimentary call. I'd love to learn more about you. Thank you.